Okay, three, two, one, action. We're talking about that intake and
Right.
outtake.
And
And
outtake. Right here, this compressor uh, box there where it's stored underneath. Um, the idea is to get the exhaust into there where I can put soundproofing and out, which will either be the back or the top, depends on if I mount this sideways or upright. I'm not determined how to do that or which generator I'm going to use. But also,
okay, how come we don't know which generator you're going to use? What happened to the $38 generator?
the what?
$38.
Oh, that went down the tube.
Oh, I was so excited for you.
That was I got a good deal on eBay, and then the guy who was supposed to be selling it ended up to be a fraud, and so they pulled his website off. And
Okay, so this is very fascinating though, because now you've got your enclosure before you got your generator. On the previous one, which came first, the generator or the enclosure box?
The chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
The chicken came first.
The enclosure box came first. Yeah. Same situation here. Yeah. So now you're already thinking ahead to how this is going to work, and then you're going to have to find a generator to fit it.
Right. I actually found out there is a brand spanking new generator that comes with the motorhome, but I'm not convinced that it's enough wattage. I mean, it's enough wattage if you just turn on the air conditioner and after it gets running, turning on something else. But you couldn't turn on like the refrigerator and the microwave and everything at one time. It'll kick the breakers out. So my last project, I got the generator, which was a great thing. I found it on Craigslist, I believe it was, from a fellow that had bought it 3 or 4 years earlier to use it for camping, but then he found out abruptly that his wife would not go camping or boondocking with him. She'd only stay in regular RV places. So he kept it in his garage, and he would start it every couple of months and let it run for about a half an hour, and just to keep the oil circulating. And he finally had to face reality. It was the generator or his wife, so he chose his wife, and I bought the generator. And then I had the box because I knew about what size I needed, but it was a lot more work. It was probably 5 to 10 times more work than this is going to be, because the insulation is already in this generator box or this old freezer, and it's plenty enough to...
Have you ever done one with an old freezer before?
No. I thought about it, but I couldn't find a freezer last time, so I had to go with a military shipping crate. It was all made out of plastic, and do all the insulating and stuff myself, which was probably incredibly harder than it should have been.
So if somebody's thinking about trying to do an box, they should be looking for a freezer right now.
Well, these things are hard to come by. You know, the guy that gave it, he just gave it to me to haul off. He just wanted it gone. But this is all metal out here. That's a precious thing, because it's a tough unit, and they're well insulated. So this is an old Montgomery Ward's. So you know how old it is. And it was looked like a piece of junk when I picked it up. And when I get done, it'll basically look like brand spanking new, especially putting that truck bed liner on the inside and on the outside. So this will probably be just black like truck beds, but it'll keep the metal from passing the sound through it, because that rubberized truck bed liner is very, very tough.
Is this the hole we were mentioning that they shoot the foam through?
Yeah, and there's one like this on the bottom, but I pulled the plug out to make sure that it had insulation in it. So
now, after you put that truck liner paint, will you then paint it white on top of that?
I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. See, this is kind of fly by the seat of your pants. You can look online and a lot of people talk about making sound boxes for their generators, but most of them are pretty rinky-dink, and you need something pretty good, because any kind of hole through this is going to allow the sound to come out. And with the new regulations that are in some parks now, I believe it's state parks or national forests, eventually, very soon, they're going to not allow you to use your generator if the decibel level is too high. And most generators run about 70 to 80 decibels, especially if they're not a special one like an Onan, which is made for RVs, and it comes with its own enclosure. So they've researched and built that enclosure as tight to that engine as they possibly can, with sound insulation in vital parts. And they're so expensive, though. They can run anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 or $7,000. And I figured time I get done with this one, I'll have maybe 1,500 or 1,600 into it, and 500 or 600 hours in work. I mean, just prepping the outside, and I got to finish the inside today. You know, it took me a whole day, and I can feel it in my shoulders, that wire brush. Some of you are going to get smart and get an electric one that'll, but you just have to score the surface so that the paint has something to stick to. Because the surface of this one, this paint wasn't that hard to score, because it's so old it began to oxidize, and the oxidation, or whatever you call it, makes it real easy for the paint, the original paint, to come out. Now there are places where the sun didn't get to that you can't even scratch the paint, so that just tells you you gotta do something. I still wire brushed it because I figure there's some micro scratching going on. It's just you can't see it as well as you can. You can see on this side here, just come right off.
Okay, so just to review, how about the whole step of from how you found it to picking it up to what you've done so far?
You mean
the whole, like, from soup to nuts? Where did you even hear about this? Craigslist?
Yes, I believe it was Craigslist. I had been searching for at least a month, and when I built the first box, I was in there just wasn't anything like this available, because around here there's a lot of scrap dealers that advertise continually, and they always say free pickup of appliances, and you just leave it outside and we'll pick it up. And so it was hard to get one before the scrap dealers got there. So finally I called the guy on Saturday, and he said, yeah, he still had it.
And then when did you pick it up?
Sunday afternoon. So
and it weighed a lot with that compressor in there.
Yeah, that was an interesting story just in that, because he was having his family over, and so he said it was in his garage. I said, well, if you could just slide it outside the garage, I'll be there to pick it up. And so anyway, long story, but we got there, and I measured it and looked at it and said, I think that'll work. And so I got my truck backed right up against the freezer, and it was laid down right then, and that's when I realized how much it weighed. I couldn't even pick up one end, and I thought, wow, maybe I'm making a mistake. But we were waiting, and I was just asking for some help to come along, because they were having their Easter dinner, and I didn't want to disturb them. And so about then, there was a couple of cable company trucks come driving into the little cul-de-sac there, and I said a prayer and said, Lord, let them stop close. And they went past me about 2 houses, and they stopped and turned around, came back and parked right across the street. And there was a couple of hunky guys in there. And so I went over and I said, I'll give you $10 a piece if you will help me stick this in the back of my truck. I said, I think once I get one end up in there that I could get the other end, which I didn't realize how much that compressor was. So one of the guys just walked over there and looked at it, and he was about half Samoan and half Mexican, and he looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he said, oh yeah, that's a piece of cake. And he bent down, and by the time I bent down, he already had one side lifted up. I don't know what he could bench press, but I wouldn't want to argue with him.